Okay, so good morning. Today is Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday, what? What's the date?
31st.
May 31st, 2016. And we're going to do employment planning workshop. So for now, let's start by telling me what is the first step?
Job.
What do you mean job?
Job. Find out what you want to do.
Yeah, what do you want to do? Okay, what's the second step?
Job. 3 to 5 companies.
Okay.
5, yeah.
Okay.
Research.
Research. To what level?
Plan.
To what level? Research and to what level?
Execute.
No more than the interviewer.
Perfect, okay. What's the fourth step?
Plan.
Plan. Plan what? It's to create a plan to get the job. Okay, because you're doing this because you plan to get a job, right?
Right.
So step 4 is, this is the plan. Now you have 3 to 5 companies. You know a lot about them. You know how they are different from one another or the same as each other. And so the next step is to create a plan. What's 5?
Execute.
Okay. Execute what?
Game plan.
Execute the plan. And what is step 6?
Jobs.
What does that mean? Jobs. That's the third time you just said job.
Looking for a job. I mean, find a company to get
Get a job. Oops. Get a job to pay the bills. So a good plan here would be to do your research, find these 3 to 5 companies, be working those 3 to 5 companies, and then go get a job to pay your bills while you're here. Because ideally, you'd want this job to start right before you got out, not this job. You'd want this to start right before you got out. Because you need freedom to do stuff. You're not really going to go a long way in a company on the outside if you don't have a smartphone. If they can't get a hold of you, you're not really going to get that far along. Anybody disagree with me? Okay, good. So here, the plan should be, you do this, and on your calendar, on your plan, it should be that you want these jobs to start right before you get out or right after you get out, a week after you get out. You want that to start so you have decent clothes, you have a smartphone, you have transportation, you have whatever you have, so when you go to work, you can perform. In the meantime, you have something to pay the bills here, some way to make money. So, can you get a taxi job while you're here?
No.
Can you go work at Uber while you're here?
No.
Yeah, you can't do any of that while you're here, but you want to do it when you get out, right?
But I could work in McDonald's right away.
Okay, that's a thing to pay the bills.
That's right.
Okay, but then what?
Then when I get done with my sentence, I'm gonna go drive a limo
Okay.
or Uber, whatever you like.
Uh-huh.
You know, that's what their money is.
What money is?
Good money. For $500 a night.
Okay, so then what I would be thinking of if I was you, instead of being negative about why am I here, because I'm pretty sure if you go to Scally and say, you know what, I don't want to be in here, I'm pretty sure he'd say, then you're not in here. They're not letting you in here to punish you. You
Can
guys.
Can we get out of here?
Yeah,
Can we? We gotta talk to LT.
yeah.
And if he, can we, I mean, there's jobs out there hiring.
Everybody knows that.
Okay, but
Okay.
I don't know
Everybody
how, I
knows.
don't know how we fell in this.
You fell in, okay, I'll say it again, because you probably weren't listening when we went through this last time.
Okay.
You people were selected to be able to get an education, so when you get out, you don't go back to doing what you were doing before. And the key to doing things is to move on. It's not to do what's insanity.
Doing the same thing over and over.
Right, okay, so people fall into patterns.
Doing the stuff we used to do before, like.
Not just the stuff you used to do.
Crime, you mean? The crime?
Not just that.
Like what?
Well, if
I
your
mean,
living
this
situation.
is my first time in prison, I don't know. See what I'm saying?
So if your living situation caused you to commit crimes, if something caused you to do it.
No,
Well,
yeah,
you know, we're not gonna talk about it
yeah,
right
yeah.
now, but something caused you to do things that got you here.
Yeah.
Okay. It really doesn't work. Recidivism is so high, it doesn't work just to say, well, you know what, I'm not gonna do that anymore. Because if you go back to the same environment, every study, every test, everything is shown. If you leave and you go back to being in the same environment you were in, you get pulled into bad behavior. You don't want to do it, you get pulled into it. Why? Because you have to do things because you don't have choices. Okay? So, you know, it's good to have a plan, but smart people, when I say smart people, I mean like military planners. People who have to plan things because people's lives are in danger. Their attitude is, no plan survives contact with the enemy. I need to have a backup plan. I need to be able to have a different plan. So to say, well, my plan is I'm going to be a limo driver, and if that company doesn't hire me, that company will, or that company will, or that company will, or that company. There's 50 companies that drive limos that could hire me. Or Uber. Probably not Uber. Probably not. Because they're under a lot of scrutiny, because if a driver does something bad, who gets blamed?
Company.
Okay, they don't really need to hire people who just got out of prison. Other companies, the way the trend is going for hiring people, if you don't have skills, they're not going to hire you. Even if the job you need doesn't have skills. Frank Bonanno, in your book, do you think you need to know how to use the internet to be a cook in a fast food restaurant? Do you really?
No.
You're just guessing what I'm trying to say. To be a cook in a fast food restaurant, if you're working at Johnny Rockets, do you need the internet?
No.
No. But he wants to hire people who do know the internet. So it doesn't matter if you know how to do the job. The job is changing and it's expanding. So it's not really a good plan to say, well, here's what I used to do. There's companies out there, I can go make $500 a night, because you know if that was true, everybody would be doing it.
No, I do it.
If it was true that it's that easy, everybody would be making $500 a night. Everybody would quit and be a limo driver.
Well, you gotta know how to hustle.
That's $3,500 a week.
Yeah.
I make 1,000 sometimes.
Okay. So if that is your plan, what you should do is go to Scally and just say, you know, this is bullshit. I don't want to be there. I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to cooperate. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to do things that waste time for other people who do want to learn. I'm going to not remember how to do simple things. Please let me just go get a job. And I have no doubt that he'll let you do that. Again, you guys are here because you were chosen, because you're going to be here for a long time. And the belief is, we don't want, if people have an education, they know the skills that they're going to need for the future, not for the past. If they have the skills that they're going to need for the future, not only will they not come back to prison, but they're going to have a better life. That's why this is happening. I don't get paid to be here. The company I work for doesn't get paid to be here. We do it because it's the right thing to do. We do it because I was in prison. Before I was in prison, I didn't drive a limo. I didn't do anything like that. I had a house in Fallbrooks. Anybody know where that is?
Is that in New York?
No, it's in California.
California.
It's San Diego County.
San Diego.
It's where the avocados are grown. And it was a nice house, 7,000 square foot house with a pool on 200 acres of land. That was a working farm. That's what I had. So I came from a position of having stuff and going into a place where I saw people, met people, lived with people who didn't grow up in an environment being told you can be whatever you want to be, you just have to work for it. They were told the opposite. Nobody's going to give you anything, and anything you get, somebody's going to try to take from you. And so a bunch of people decided, you know, somebody's got to do something because the current system isn't working. So myself and some other guys from prison convinced some people to, let's buy this school in California and try this in prison to educate people so they have the skills and tools to change their life. But the number one challenge is people don't want to change. They say they want to change, but they don't want to change. They want to change the outcome, but they don't want to change the behavior. And unfortunately, you have to change your behavior. And where do you think that starts?
With learning.
Well, where?
In class.
But where does that start? Where does the changing your behavior start?
It's not with you. You
It
gotta-
starts with your attitude. It starts in your brain. It starts with your attitude. If your attitude is, this is fucked, I'm wasting my time, I could be out making, what do they pay at McDonald's?
Minimum wage.
Which is what?
I don't know, 7.25, 8.25?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Okay. Well, you're the one who wants the job there, right?
Yeah, for just to pass by this time.
Okay.
Okay, and
So-
about the $500, not everybody knows how to make the 500. There's cab drivers from casino to casino, make that minimum wage, $30, $40
look,
a tip.
Everybody, we
Everybody
trust
just-
you, okay, but that's not the point. We're not talking about becoming limo drivers.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we're not talking about doing it. But if you're gonna make $7.70, let's say it's $9 an hour, because that's divisible by 3. Now, my understanding is you get 30% on your books, okay? On your books, right? So if you're working 30 hours a week, you're gonna get to keep, say 10, say a third of it. Okay, 10 times 9 is $90. I can tell you from the harsh realities of life, it's better to invest $90 in gaining skills than it is to take $90 and think that you're getting ahead. Or think that good things are going to happen, because I'm going to try to get somebody in here who does the background screening for the casinos, for the Wynn. And so Wynn is kind of at the cutting edge. Everybody might be 2 years behind. So that means it's kind of like a 2-year window before everybody gets as sophisticated as the Wynn. And what's going to happen in the future is, when you go in for an interview, they're going to have a database and they're going to know where else you've interviewed. Okay? And they're going to know where you had a job. These guys, this guy that I'll bring in, his name's Ed Robusto. He's got an ad in the magazine. All he needs is your social security number, and he can go back for the last 10 years and find every job you've had. You think that might be important for people going to hire you? If they see you've had 5 different limo company jobs, or you know, you had 3 different minimum wage jobs, do you think that an employer would care? Yeah. And it all works against you. It doesn't work for you, it works against you.
Because they're gonna wonder why come you had so many problems with the job.
Yeah, but you know what, there's, you know, unfortunately, this isn't North Dakota. What's going on in North Dakota? It's a boom in North Dakota.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have houses. People are renting out spaces on their lawn to put a tent in because the economy is growing so fast. There's no apartments, there's no houses, but the oil business is booming in North Dakota. And I've spent a little bit of time in Fargo. Has anybody here been to Fargo? Okay.
Never heard of it.
I had a friend that lived there.
Huh?
I had a friend that lived there.
It's not bad during the summer. In fact, it's really nice during the summer. But during the winter, it's very bitter cold. It's the, you know, like the wind coming in off the prairie type of thing. It's been blowing for a couple 100 miles. So it just sucks the heat right out. Anyway, in North Dakota, they have a hard time hiring people. You go to North Dakota, you have jobs. Here, guess what they have more? People or jobs? They have more people. Yeah, there's a lot of jobs. You can always go get a job. But the kind of jobs that you want, the people who get those are the people who are skilled. So what's happening is somebody's trained for this, they have skill level for this job, they lost that job. Do you think they're getting a job that's better than that job mostly today in Nevada? Or less? Yeah. So people are squeezing down, down, down. So you have somebody here who has a lot of experience as a good limo driver. Well, the only chance he might get to start is not a good one, not something he would have taken before. But that's what's available here. It's not like in North Dakota where you don't really have to have skills. They need bodies to throw problems, and they're paying a lot of money. Here, you are competing, you will be competing for good jobs. You will be competing against people who probably are overqualified. That's why this employment planning workshop is so important, because it gives you an edge over the people. But it starts with your attitude. If your attitude is, I'm wasting my time, then you are wasting your time. And anybody else's time that's impacted by it. And so you're here because Casa Grande said, look, these people are going to be here for a while. They have time to learn skills and then go get jobs. And the jobs that they're going to get are better than the jobs they would get if they were just working at a low-level job. They're going to end up making more money in the year by doing this than if they just go get a job and save money. Because you can't really save money if you're getting $90 a week. You're going to spend that money. You're going to send it home. You're going to do whatever you have to do. So you're here because Casa Grande, not because Casa Grande is trying to punish people. You're here because Casa Grande is trying to say, this is what it should be like. That when you get out of prison, you're better off education-wise than when you went into prison. When you get out of prison, you're not left behind people. You don't walk out saying, wow, I've been in a time capsule for 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know what's going on out there. That when you get out, you're ahead of other people because other people were so busy just making ends meet that they didn't have the luxury to take a step back, look at where things are, what are the trends, and what are the skills. Okay, but I know it's hard, and I know that because when I got locked up, it was very frustrating for me, right? Because I didn't come from East LA, go to prison. I came from something and went down. So it was a very frustrating thing. But I decided I was going to come out of prison better than when I went in. I was going to come out better physically. So I worked out a lot. My spare time. I didn't play cards. I didn't play dominoes. I didn't sit around watching TV. I worked out as much as I could. Mentally. So I did a lot of reading. went to school when I could, but that was kind of really a waste of time because the cost of textbooks was ridiculous. But reading, emotionally, and spiritually, those 4 areas. My thing was, when I get out of prison, I'm going to be better off physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally than when I went in. And I was. And I can tell you, just as kind of a little secret between us, is that, you know, now when I'm out there and I judge other people who have law degrees, I meet them, or people who think they're smart because they have really nice cars and a nice house, I judge them by saying, how would this guy do in prison? What would this guy be like after 2 weeks in the hole?
That is funny.
Okay? And how do you think I feel about myself compared to them? I feel pretty good, because mostly I say that guy couldn't handle it.
It's so funny. I'm not even out of prison, but I sometimes do that too.
Huh?
I'm not even out of prison, but I sometimes do that.
Yeah. So that's a benefit, you know. I say, I've gone through hell. That person hasn't. They think they know what it's like. They think they're better, but I don't think they would do so well. That's what I say to most of the people. Now, one of the big things is, back to mental and attitude, is things that you believe. And so there is a school of philosophy called Stoicism. Have you heard of it? Stoicism? S-T-O-I-C-I-S-M. Have you? 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 Yeah. We haven't heard about it, even though it started in 300 BC. We haven't heard about it because it basically ended in 300 AD. Lasted about 600 years. As the main thing. Educated people were trained to be Stoics. Lasted about 600 years, and then it was kind of closed down. And it was closed down because at 300 AD, something else became legitimate and kosher. What was that? Okay, well, it was religion, Christianity. So if I say, when did Christianity start? What do you say, Kelly? Well, what would you guess?
380.
Why would you say that?
Because that's when the Stoicism ended.
Okay, good guess. So you're pretty smart. But it's true it did, but why did Christianity start around then? Okay. Why didn't it start right after Jesus? Wouldn't that make sense? Like, when did Jesus die? Huh? Well, what does the year 0 mean?
0. That's.
Okay, you guys don't read the Bible a lot, right?
Beginning of Christ.
That's after he died.
Okay, so 0 was about when Jesus was born. It's not actually 0, but that's what the calendar thing was. Is you know, why? If you go back 2016 years, why was that day 0? And that's because that's when they thought Jesus was born. So this is supposed to be 2016 years after Jesus was born. It's within a 10, 12 years, 8 years. Okay. So you're distracting me.
I'm sorry, because the guys asking him where's his, he didn't show up.
Okay, but so here we go to this. There are things you can control and things you can't control. Doesn't matter where it is, right?
Yes.
Don't waste your time thinking about where he is, because we can't control it. So anyway, but Christianity didn't start around Jesus' time. It started 300 years later. There were a bunch of people that were doing their own things. Does anybody read the New Testament? Anybody ever read the New Testament?
Some of it.
Okay. So the New Testament happened after Jesus, right? Okay. And there was Paul's letters to the Corinthians, and right? Okay. So there were these little groups of people out around that had their own church. And the Emperor of Rome said, no, we're not going to have everybody have their own little thing. We're going to come together and we're going to agree on what it is. And I'm going to control that. And then he made Christianity legal. Before that, it wasn't legal. But when that happened, Stoicism got knocked out because Stoicism doesn't say you need to have a God. What's the purpose of being good in a Christian world or a Muslim world? What's the purpose for being good?
Be honest, faithful.
No, what's the reason to be good? Why should you be good?
To go to heaven.
To go to heaven. To go to heaven. Be good in this life so you'll have eternal blessings of some sort. Okay? So that means you put up with crap and you deal with stuff. When I lived in Costa Rica, I'd ride on a bus through these mountains. Costa Rica is very mountainous. This is in 1980. And they didn't have paved roads, but everybody would have to ride a bus because people didn't have cars. And for the Americans that were on the bus, the driver makes this turn, the truck kind of feels like it's sliding on the dirt, and you're looking down, and it's the scariest roller coaster ride in the world. It makes Disneyland and Magic Mountain look like nothing. But as the Americans are thinking we're going to die, all of the women on the bus just calmly bless themselves that this is okay. Now we get to go to heaven. We've suffered enough on earth. Now we get to go to heaven. But in Stoicism, it's not based upon a future reward. It's not do good today so you'll be rewarded tomorrow. Here, Stoicism is do good today because it's the right thing. Moral virtue is enough. Do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. And that didn't fit, right? That doesn't really fit with an idea of do good today because you'll go to heaven and be with your brother Jesus and Mary or whatever. Those things are not compatible. You can't have a system that says do good because it's the right thing. If you want to control people, you say do good because you'll go to heaven. Well, how do I know what good is? Well, we have this guy here called what? Priest, right? Or a mullah, or what? What are the leaders of the Muslim church called?
Sheikh.
Like sheikh?
Sheikh, I mean in the mosque?
Yeah.
Sheikh, like
Okay.
a pope.
Okay, but I
Or a
mean
priest.
in each one, priest is called what?
Sheikh, each one is a sheikh.
Okay, what's a mullah?
Imam.
Imam.
Imam, yeah. Allah, you mean?
No, what's an imam?
Allah is God.
I know. What's imam?
Imam,
The preacher, the person that leads the prayer.
Okay, all right. So Stoicism doesn't work competing against systems like that. Or the same thing with Jews, right? The Jews, there'll be a day of atonement, the Messiah will come, people will be raised out of their graves. So Stoicism didn't work, so it got wiped out. But if you go to college, if you go to a good college, they teach Stoicism. Because ultimately what it comes down to is if you believe that moral virtue is enough, just do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. If you believe that, you're going to get very far. So that's what they teach at these schools. But it starts with the first principle is there are things you can control and things you can't control. Don't get upset about the things you can't control. Okay? So an example would be as long as you're in this class, don't whine and pout about it. You can't control it. Just do something about it. Go talk to Lieutenant Scally or somebody and get out of the class. Don't be disruptive for everyone else. Or when you get to work, don't be the guy who needs to point out all of the problems and things like that. If they're not paying you to do that, don't do that. Be a positive person. Do the best that you can. So, at Larson, outside, we start every day, not typing, we start every day watching a TED Talk. And so for a 16-week period, we go through, it takes 8 weeks to go through, and we answer the questions, 2 questions. who am I and why do I behave the way I do? Because the idea is if you want to change your behavior, it helps, right? If you know why you behave the way you do, then you kind of know what to change, as opposed to, you know, doing things that are kind of like putting a Band-Aid on the problem instead of curing the disease. So we start with who am I and why do I behave the way I do? And I can assure you that who we think we are is not really who we are. Okay, we believe stories about who we are. And as long as we believe those stories that are not true, we're going to behave based upon those stories. So like I talked about a couple of those stories before, like why don't you like to sell? And what was the story we were brought up believing? What's one story? No, what's one? Well, what's the story we were taught to grow up believing? Okay, what's the one that you came up with, Joseph? Stranger danger. Okay? So as long as you believe that story, you're not really going to be able to sell, because on a subconscious level, you don't like being around people you don't know. And what is much of selling? Actually, people who sell, they say, I sell, that guy's an order taker. So if you know somebody and they buy from you again, you're now just taking an order. Real salespeople say sales starts after they say no. Otherwise, you're just taking an order. So my hunch is Mohammed was a good car guy, limo driver, because he was out selling and pitching. And sometimes people would say, no, I don't want to go there. No, I don't want to do that. But then he'd try to talk him out of it. Or he might have anticipated, well, if I just say to the guy, do you want this? The guy might say no. So instead of just saying, hetza petza, blah, 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 you want to go to the Crazy Horse, instead of doing that, he might say, are you looking for a good time? You know, we've got some great places in town that you should see. There's no obligation. You don't have to do anything. They're not going to charge you when you get in. And that's a better thing than saying, hey, you want to go to Crazy Horse 3. And then on the other hand, to be really smart, you'd go to the guys at Crazy Horse and say what?
What do you mean?
I know you pay every other driver $60
Yes.
for somebody coming in.
$50 a head.
Okay.
Then I go to
That's in the old ones.
$20 a head, so
But-
$70.
So he might go to the people and say, look, I know that your normal rate is this, but by the time I get through with people in the car, the people I bring in, they're going to spend twice as much as the guy who brings them in a cab or any other limo, because I'm going to be getting them ready to go. I'm going to be setting proper expectations. So I deserve to be paid more. Otherwise, I got to go to Deja Vu.
Oh, Sapphire.
Okay, or wherever,
Mhm.
Sapphire, wherever. Okay, so that you can't do that if you are carrying around in your brain stranger danger, right?
Right.
Or I don't want them to say no. When I say in here is another example of that. When I say in here, don't worry about accuracy, focus on speed, go to 80% accuracy, and I see people aren't doing that, what does that mean? There's some subroutine that they're acting on. 80% is bad. I need to get close to 100%. 100% is good because we've been trained in school, right? When you were in the first grade, you got your first score back. Everybody probably remembers the first 100% score they got, or 10 out of 10, or whatever it was. Okay, because it made us feel good. We feel good when we see 96% accuracy. Why? Why do you feel good when you see 96% accuracy?
I was paying attention,
Okay. It's really because when you were a little kid, if you got close to 10 out of 10, 100%, that meant you were special. That meant you were better. That's really the reason why. And this gets back to why do I behave the way I do? It's not because of what I think, it's because of the way I was trained when I was a little kid, and I don't even know about these habits and routines I get into. And if you don't go back and change those, the same thing is going to happen. So now, if you trust me, and you just focus on speed, what will happen is, in 2 weeks, you're not going to see your scores be basically the same. You're going to see your scores a lot higher, because they're not really going to go up from this if you're concerned about staying at 96% accuracy. Okay, but unfortunately, the way it is right now in typing, learning to type, your brain needs to synchronize with your fingers. And it's trial and error. And I think everybody agrees, we oftentimes learn the most by what? But by doing what? Failing. Okay, that's where we learn the most. You know, if you have to do math homework and you get them all right, so you only do 10, or you do 3 and you say, oh, this is too easy. Why am I wasting my time doing this? Do you think you learn more than the guy who had to do 15 because he couldn't quite get it right the first 14 times? What would you say, Joseph?
Person that did it 15 times.
Yeah, because they focused on, there's something I'm not doing right. I need to keep doing it. And by at this stage, I think in your learning to learn, aren't they talking about that yet? Do more of your homework. Don't just do the minimum. If you have 10 things to do, do 30 things. It's going to help you learn, because that's how our brains work. Okay, so we now are going to change the routine. Remember last week I said we're going to try to lock in. What's the schedule going to be here? So every day from 11 to noon, except today, every day from 11 to noon, we're going to be doing our employment planning workshop. And so there's 2 things that you need to do. You need to have a document. You need to create a document, because you need to document everything that you're doing on these steps. Okay, so how do we create a document? What do we start with?
File.
Huh?
Go to file.
File in what?
Create a new document.
Yeah, so we go into, first we turn our computer on, then we launch what?
Calendar.
Word document. You talking about Google Docs?
Yeah,
Chrome.
Chrome. So we launch Chrome. Then we launch what?
Documents. Google Documents.
No.
Oh, we got a new event or something.
Create new
We got Chrome running, now what do? We go to the 9-square grid
Right.
List.
and launch what?
Calendar, ain't it?
Not calendar.
Calendar.
The list.
Google Docs.
Nope.
Google.
That it's relative
We
to
go to add an event.
No.
No, it's
Then
not
months.
events, that's calendar.
Months, what months?
Huh?
BK months.
Bookmarks? No. We launch what?
Calendar.
No, we do not launch calendar. We want to create a document. We don't launch calendar.
Apps.
Wait a minute, this is confusing. A drive?
Drive. Okay, so to your question earlier today about Drive versus Google Drive. Okay. Drive is the name of what, Joseph? Okay, Drive is what Google calls an app that is primarily for storage. It's like a virtual hard drive. That's where it came from. So what's a hard drive? A hard drive is the thing on your computer that stores your information, okay? What's a virtual hard drive? It's the cloud, okay? So Google created this clever app called Drive because it's one word, one syllable, instead of Cloud Drive. Okay, it's called Drive. Their product name is called Drive. I say Google Drive, or we should all say Google Drive, because it lets people know what drive you're talking about. Because if they don't have a context of Google, so Google can say, yeah, we have a product called Drive. And we know it's Google Drive, right? But if you're talking to an Apple person and you say, have you ever used Drive? They might think what? They might have no idea what you're talking about. But if you say Google Drive, they do. So I say Google Drive, though the actual product name is just Drive. And I also say, I don't say Drive because I don't want people to think I'm talking about the hard drive on their computer. Or some people having no idea.
You say person drive.
I just say Google Drive. And then we don't have to worry about anything, because Google product Drive, if you know what Drive does. So what does Drive do in addition to storing files?
Communicate revenue.
Well, it enables you to do that, but it has
Share, create, share stuff.
docs, spreadsheets, slides, like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Google things, Google's version of word processing, spreadsheets, and PowerPoint are in the Drive. So as part of this, you need to document all of the steps you're doing. You can't say, well, I'm doing it in my head. And you don't want to do it just on pieces of paper, because it's not going to be efficient. Okay, so when we're doing employment planning workshop, which is going to be every day from this point forward from 11 to noon. So from 8 to 11, we're going to be doing the other stuff, and we're going to do the other stuff from 11 to noon, and we're not going to do anything after lunch because I got to get somebody in here to help. Phyllis can't come in. So everybody should know how to create a document. And we'll probably work on that tomorrow because we only have 15 minutes. We're going to go to the top of the hour. So I have 15 minutes. Huh?
I feel like the question I asked, so on that on the app, on Google app, so there's a Google Drive and then there's a thing that just said Drive, right?
Well, it did just say Drive, and it's a triangle.
Yeah, see the triangle. So
Yeah,
that's-
there's only one. When you're in Google, they just call it Drive, and they just call it Docs. I might say Google Docs so that you're not confused between Google Docs and what?
Document them.
Word.
Yeah,
Word doc. Okay, and it's short for document. So you need to create a document, and every day when you're doing your employment planning workshop, you need to update your document. And the document, you can have many pages, and that's kind of like your workbook, or in business it's called a white paper. Has anybody ever heard that term, white paper? Okay, so in business it's called a white paper, which is kind of a brain dump on a particular subject, everything you know. So tomorrow I'm not going to spend time on your document, but I just want to see that you have a document, and there should be a page that is step 1. Find 3 to 5. Now there's a worksheet.
Cut them on?
Hmm?
Can I complete it on?
No, because it's almost time. There's a worksheet called Placement Worksheet that is on the drive in the 1LTC LV folder. So I'd like you to remember this. You won't, so we're going to do it again tomorrow. But whenever you see a document on the drive that you want, you first of all have to make a copy of it. So you do that by just going in here. Forgot you don't have it. Morning, Lieutenant.
Why do you have a copy?
Why do you make a copy? Because the ones that are on the drive are just, that's a common one. You have your own copy that you then becomes your personal one. So this document helps you start your employment planning workshop. And the first one of the premises is if I don't know where I'm going, any path will take me there. So if you don't know what you want to do for a living, if you don't know what your purpose is, where you're trying to go, ancient Chinese proverb, if you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. But the Navy SEALs got another point to that, which is if you don't know where you're starting from, you can't get there anyway. So there's a Navy SEALs or any special ops has a drill. They take you up in a helicopter, they fly you around for an hour or so with the blindfold on, they drop you off, and here they'd say, now get back to Las Vegas. How would you do that? Okay. So they drop you off here, and they say, get back to Las Vegas. How would you do that? How would you do that, Mohammed?
I don't know, by the sun, but
That's what a lot of people say. Okay, what would you say?
if you have no watch or nothing.
Huh?
If you have no watch or nothing, I guess.
Well, you say you do have a watch,
Okay. Like
but you don't have a cell phone. You
Like
don't
in
have
the
a
Indians,
GPS.
Like in the Indians did back in the
Man, you
days. I
stuck,
don't know.
that's all it is.
Right?
You don't know, let's say this is Las Vegas. You don't know if they dropped you off here, or here, or here, or here, or here, or here. And so a lot of people say, I just go west. I'll run into Las Vegas. Well, if you're west of Las Vegas and you keep going west, are you getting closer to Las Vegas or further away?
Further away.
Yeah. So if you don't know where you're starting from, you can't get there anyway. So that's the second premise on here. And then the next one is kind of that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 P's. But in law school, there's 6 P's. In normal life, it's 5 P's. Proper planning prevents poor performance. That comes back to here. You need to have a plan. This is a plan for the rest of your life. No plan survives contact with the enemy. Now, yeah, some people get lucky and things just work out. I don't know anybody like that. I've heard of it, but I don't personally know anybody that everything just worked out, that they didn't have to have a plan, that the plan didn't fail, that they didn't have to pivot a little bit. I must plan. Okay, so, yeah.
Okay, back to the drop point.
Yeah.
Okay, so how you gonna know where you at?
Well, you might not ever know. But if you're smart, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out where you are. Like you might go to the highest mountain and try to find some point that you recognize. Oh, I know that mountain. That's Mount Charleston. That's Mount Charleston there. So I must be north of Mount Charleston. So I now have to go south, southwest.
Maybe you just walk to the street and see, maybe there's a little closer.
There is no street.
There's no road?
No, you're in the middle of the desert, or or they drop you off in a mountain. They lower the helicopter and they throw a rope out and say, get the hell out of here. See you in 2 days. Hopefully.
That's how they do it, that's how they sales training?
Yep. They also might drop you in the ocean. Say you're 5 miles from land. You figure it out, and it's noon. So it's not sunset. It's high noon. So you don't know which way is north, south, east, or west. You just got to try to figure it out. So in law school, it's proper planning prevents piss poor performance. But here it's just poor performance. And that's to accentuate how important planning is. Would you ever consider hiring an attorney who didn't have a plan? Who just said, well, when we get in front of the jury, I'll figure it out then. We're gonna go see the judge today. I'm not really prepared. I don't have a plan. I just hope the judge is in a good mood and he shows us some love. How much is that worth per hour? I'm not the most expensive attorney, but I'll give you a good price. I don't have time to plan. I don't have time to do planning. No plan survives contact with the enemy. I need to have a backup plan. Here, you are here because they're trying to give you the opportunity to create a good plan, a plan that if you don't learn stuff, you can't achieve these goals. In other words, to get to there, I need to know things that I don't know today. I need to have skills that I don't have today. Even if it's going back to something you knew. There's going to be a huge business in the world for people that can buy tile from China. Kind of like Zappos. Are you familiar with Zappos? Okay. So just imagine if there was a
Zappos is a shoe store or is it a restaurant?
internet shoe store. If you could have access to buy any tile from anywhere at the best possible price, instead of just the stuff that you carry or you have a warehouse full of this stuff because it was a good price, now you need to go sell it. The internet model is you have a lot of manufacturers out there and you make it easy for them to use you to sell business for them. And so somebody like you could go to a lot of tile contractors, guys that lay tile, and say, look, will you pay me if I can get you better tile at a better price and a bigger selection? You don't have tile tied up in your warehouse back here, and you don't have the time to be searching for this stuff all over the world. I think every tile company would say, I'm interested, because they're paying people to order, to take control of the tile they have, right? And a lot of guys that I know that do marble, especially, you go in their warehouse and what do you think is in there? Tons of marble. Tons, right? Hundreds of tons of marble. Because they had to buy a lot of marble to get a good price. So now they have this marble, and then every job they get to, what do they try to tell that person they need? The marble that they have in their warehouse, right? Does the person really need that marble? Maybe not.
You gotta sell it to them.
But you own it, now you gotta sell it. So the way the world is changing because of the cloud is that model doesn't exist anymore. So it's like Zappos compared to a shoe store, right? Shoe stores would buy these particular types of shoes because they thought they could sell them. Zappos, I don't remember the last numbers I saw, but it was something like their sales were like $80,000 a minute. Why? How could Zappos sell $80,000 worth of stuff a minute?
They got good advertising to sell it.
They're selling it all over the world. If you have a shoe store, who are you selling shoes to? People who what? People who walk in your store. And they don't have a choice of buying any shoe, right? They only can buy what? The shoes you have in the store that fit them. So that model was not a good model. Another business that's completely dead is travel agencies. When I was in my 20s, 30s, a question that typically asked people if you were in business and you traveled around a lot was, who's your travel agent? Who handles your travel stuff? Because you couldn't do it on your own. You couldn't go to the internet and book your own flights. It was impossible. Southwest Airlines got to be huge because when they started, you'd have to call an 800 number and say, I want to get from Las Vegas to Albuquerque. What's the price? And they'd do it, and you had to do the transaction over the phone. But when the internet came along, nobody needed travel agencies anymore. What do travel agents do now? They mainly do tours. They do package tours. Oh, 2 weeks to Italy. You want a cruise tour? That's the kind of stuff they do now, because you can't really do that as a person. You can't really book your tour and find, well, what's the best hotel in this town in Italy? And then the next day I'm going to this town. We want to have lunch at it's too hard for people to do today. But the simple stuff is, they are. the last thing I would want to think that I could possibly be 5 years from now is a limo driver. That's not a good plan. It's not a good plan. Okay, because that's going to be gone. Okay, now that might be a good plan for 5 years.
That's it.
Okay, but what if you don't have a plan after the 5 years?
Right, business, that's one.
Okay, so buying a business could be a good idea, could be a bad idea. There's going to be a lot of businesses being sold because the person says, you know what, I've been doing this business for 20 years, I'm making a living, but it's getting harder every year. I'm going to find somebody who doesn't know this business, and they're just going to look at my books and say, yeah, this guy's been around for 20 years, his business, he's got a travel agent, he's been a travel agent for 20 years, drives a nice car, has a nice house. Well, yeah, that's because he made his money before. The world is going to be radically different in the next 20 years. And, you know, part of the message is you have to tell your kids and grandchildren the same type of thing. Don't think you're just going to be able to go get a job doing this without skills, or you're going to be able to go buy this business without getting skills. Because, you know, let's go to the tile business. Would you think that you could be in the tile business doing internet tile sales if you didn't know anything about the cloud?
Yeah.
How?
I don't know if you need the cloud.
No, I'm saying not the existing business, but the business of
Oh.
selling any tile to anybody from anywhere. If you didn't know the cloud, no, you couldn't. You wouldn't even think of the idea of saying, what I want to do is go to people who install tile and say, let me supply you with the tile. I'll get it for you at a better price and a broader selection, and you won't have money tied up in tile. You couldn't even think about that if you don't know the cloud, because you don't know that it's possible to do these things. Okay, so it's 11 o'clock. Were you guys here on Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
No,
came.
we wasn't.
Okay, and what happened?
Came,
Nobody was here.
Okay, but then did you work? Did you start working?
Oh.
Did you get kicked?
The door's locked.
Oh,